Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming.
Hey.
Hi. So we're here to talk about menopause, the thing that all of us probably thought we were never going to experience, even though it's a known fact that everybody is going to go through menopause if you're a female. So here we are. And I kind of want to know from all of you what, if you had, maybe you didn't, but if you had any sort of preconceived ideas about what menopause might look like or what you envisioned it being versus what it actually has been for you. So I don't know if anybody here would be willing to volunteer their, gut response to that.
My mom went through it for a whole year. She was hot flashing, mood swings, cold at times. She looked like she had the fan. It would come out. She'd be instantly drenched. Hair would go back natural and that sort of thing. And so I thought, this looks like hell. Mm-hmm. And I always thought this would be a time that I dreaded for the most part. So yeah, that was my personal experience with menopause. And so I'm afraid of it. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think my experience was totally different. I knew nothing of it. It is almost as if it didn't exist, kind of like pregnancy. Like you just have a child, you just, get older, and and I have 3 older sisters, so never did anybody speak to me about it.
Wow.
Not my mother, not my 3 sisters that are like 13, 14, and 15 years older than me. So for me, when it started to happen, I just thought I was not well.
So you thought that you actually had something wrong with you, like in some
absolutely,
way. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Wow. Yeah. That's common. It's really common.
I can absolutely relate to that. I thought of someone much older, and my mom, she breezed through menopause with no issues. So I'm thinking, it's something that you dread, and, maybe I wouldn't necessarily have to experience and deal with.
Yeah.
Surprise.
Yeah. What about you?
So I had a similar experience as Michelle did, because my mom had what seemed to be very simple. Like she had no symptoms, no nothing. Like her period just left. Like she didn't even have hot flashes. So I think what I initially thought about menopause was, you get hot flashes, and that was kind of it. Like, I didn't know, like the onset were many, many things, and, very similar to you. I thought I was physically sick, on top of experiencing anxiety and panic attacks. So, which I had never experienced before. So,
yeah, it's so unsettling.
It's a very, very, very challenging time.
Yeah.
Wow. It's so interesting how all of us have had such different experiences with, what our ideas are and what they mean, and then just sort of what that looks like for each of us and how it sort of shapes what we do or don't do in regard to the things that we actually experience in our physical bodies. So thank you for sharing that, because I think it really helps sort of bring some groundedness to an issue that's really actually significant for so many people that we all have really varied experiences with. So thank you for sharing on that.
Yes.
I feel the same. It's something that, wasn't really widely spoken about for me in my life. Like my mom didn't really have a menopausal experience that I was aware of. So yeah, that's something.
Maybe they hid it from us.
Yeah, maybe.
They did.
It's a secret.
Yeah. Did any of you feel shame around menopause, like experiencing menopause, or if your experience was looking different than your mother's, to think like, oh gosh, well, I thought it would look this way. So was there any sort of visceral or emotional response that you had to that?
To be honest, prior to an experience I had, I did have some shame. I felt like, do I become less than a woman? And, in my mind, I thought this was this old lady, like a Karen running around just mad at the world. You know what I mean? I was like, is that what I'm going to turn into? But I went out to dinner with a couple girls. It was a big group of people, and there were 2 like very fabulous jet setters, and they were connecting with each other. And one pulled out the fan, and she was like, girl, I'm going through menopause. And the other lady said, me too. And they both went back and forth. And I thought, they are so young and vibrant and aspirational. Like, this is menopause. I thought menopause was something else. And so I have been obsessed with the idea of like, one, like you said, why don't we talk about this? Like, why? I feel like there is some shame or secrecy attached to it, you know? So it's changed my mind as to what that is.
For sure.
Yeah, it's very interesting because I don't know if it's shame as much as it's just not a consideration, right? Like, because I think the way I felt about it was almost like a light had gone off, like, oh, wow, like I wish I would have known instead of thinking maybe I was going insane, you know, and because for me, I've always like had some pride about getting older and, you know, and just being thankful for the wisdom that comes along with it, right? And so for me, it was like, man, I think this should be talked about more. I don't think it's on people's mind, right? Like it's not a consideration. And I think it's to the point that you just made, is that it varies for people. But I think that that's an even more compelling reason to share, because no two people's experiences are going to be alike.
Right.
But yet they can all fall under this umbrella of what you're experiencing is a natural transition.
Right.
So,
yeah, thank you for saying that. I think it's something that we all sort of feel inherently in our bodies, that it really resonates, that it is so different. You know, like no two people are going to have the same experience, even when we all have technically some of the same symptoms. So I appreciate everybody sharing, because I think it is a really vulnerable thing too, even though it's something that we're used to, like the images that are presented to us, right, in society of like what a menopausal woman looks like, you know, it's sort of, well, I mean, maybe I should ask the question, do you think that in society there is a set image presented to us as consumers, as women who are going to be dealing with that, to purchase products that deal with menopause, to seek treatment for menopause, but that only looks a certain way, right? So I don't know if anybody here wants to talk about what maybe your experience has been societally, like what are those images that you've seen, and then like how does that differ from what it actually has been for you?
I think it's unspoken. I think
what products?
You see like this very, you know, active women and that sort of thing. And then it's like, you just kind of jump into like, you know, your senior stage. And it's like, you don't see like middle-aged women like fabulously like going through menopause and then like, but I'm still fly, I'm still sexy. Like we don't get both messages. So I kind of took that omission as like, okay, so what happens in the middle?
Yeah, it's like either you're young and vibrant, or it's over for you.
Right.
Like we see all these beautiful women and people trying to still look like they're 20, but there's like, what about the normal women that are just having life paths and going through change, the change that I've heard people call it, which is kind of funny to me, because it is kind of like this weird, ominous dark cloud,
like a final fade
change.
You know, like it's, you know, we're trying to hold on to our youth, and then it's like we just kind of descend into this abyss of like, what? You know what I mean? Like, and I love that you said that you know, you embrace aging gracefully. Like, I want to be that. I want to get there. You know what I mean? Like that. I think that's something that the newer generations, especially our kids, we all have, you know, daughters. You know, this is the kind of thing that we should be teaching, because I think our parents they got different information, and they were, you know, a little less open about this kind of thing. That's why I think this panel is like so important for people to see.
And I think if you think about like past generations, like people suffered in silence quite a bit, right? And
Absolutely.
There was innately shame. There was, and I would say what I saw depicted about like menopause is like a woman who's unhinged and she's like pouring sweat and miserable. And it, you know, and don't get me wrong, because it is kind of miserable. It's like, but at the same time, at least for me, there is no part of me that feels like less than, right? It just feels like, oh, like, what is this little metamorphosis? you
Right.
know,
Right.
you know, kind of like being in a cocoon of sorts and emerging,
Yeah.
you know, as a different butterfly.
I think that's
So.
interesting.
That's a very positive.
I love
way to
that.
look at it. I don't know that I look at it that
That's
way.
gorgeous.
I feel like a little fat caterpillar sometimes.
I do. And then I imagine it growing into like a beautiful butterfly.
I fly away one day. But yeah, it's so beautiful to hear that, because maybe I'll change my perspective, you know? Because honestly, for me, it's been not like that. I feel like less than. I do feel that way because, you know, I never had weight issues my entire life, ever. And then all of a sudden, now I can't eat anything and not gain a pound, you know? Or you go to the gym for 70 years and you won't lose a pound. So I find that to be really difficult as a woman, especially living in this area of the world where looks are so important, and never really having to think about like a weight issue, which I know a lot of people struggle with, but I just didn't.
Right.
It's a little bit terrifying.
Yeah.
And you have to reevaluate who you are and adjust your entire perspective on life, which is beautiful in a way, but difficult.
Yeah. I wonder too sometimes about just from a societal standpoint, looking at if the messages we received at a younger age were different, would we even feel like we have to reframe our experience to prepare for this whole second phase? If it was something that was just more widely accepted, that we would have to really shift our entire perspective to like prepare ourselves for this whole journey that people end up going on. And it's an important thing to consider. This, what a lot of people call sort of the second half of your life. And I know, you know, Winona likes to consider the way that we address menopause is sort of preparing you for the second part of your life that can be even better than what you've already experienced, right? That it's the second part of life that is even better. So it's instead of transitioning into something where you feel like, oh, the first part, which was the good part, and now we're transitioning into the less than good part. And it's not like that. It's actually about really embracing these things that are happening to us, right? With grace and with all the things that come with it, instead of the shame, instead of the things that, you know, maybe society is helping us to feel, right? It's just sort of inherent in the messaging. And I guess what would be important for me to know too, I think, just to get a full picture of how you knew when you were going through, like what were the signs and things that you started to experience? And then like, what did that narrative look like for each of you in terms of like your thought process? Like, were you in denial? Did you have good feelings, bad feelings, neutral feelings about it? What did that experience look like for each of you? Michelle?
For me, I noticed definite physical changes out of nowhere. I've gone through most of my 40s feeling pretty darn good. And then all of a sudden, like a cloud, I was hit with mental issues, physical changes that just all at once, you know, I felt like I was suffocating. And I think I was in denial initially, but discussed it with my physician. And she was like, oh, no, you're not there yet. You know, we'll retest you in a few years. You know, you still have your cycle, so you're going to be okay, knowing that I felt miserable. So finding Winona as a solution has really, really changed my life. Honestly, it has, in a positive way, because I was feeling, you know, really hopeless. My physician is telling me I'm fine. I go home and I'm, you know, sweating until I finally fall asleep. I wake up and I'm frantic and, you know, like Fabia said, anxiety issues. It just was not working for me at all. So I knew that, you know, that something was changing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I gotta say, it was an evolution for me to get to this place, this positive place, because let me tell you, 2020, I was like, you guys are gonna have to lock me up in an asylum because I have panic attacks every day, I have anxiety every day. I always felt like my narrative was that when I would experience things like night sweats, I was like, oh, well, I'm a hot sleeper, which in some respects I was. Like even in my 20s, like some nights I would just be hot. But I don't think I necessarily, it didn't click for me that I was going through like perimenopause and hitting menopause. Like, I don't know what I thought, to be honest with you. I think I was just like, what is going on? I am literally losing my mind and I'm exhausted. And it's like totally, it's like a light switch. It's like I went to bed in February of 2020. And then by April of 2020, I was this different person. And then also the same thing that you had to say about weight. Like I was this person who was like a 4'6", and then all of a sudden I have these pounds and it's like, well, where'd this come from? I'm, not doing anything differently. I'm eating the same. I do hot yoga. Like nothing has really changed. And I think now, and then back to Michelle's point where I feel like that's what was so frustrating. I went to doctors and the same thing, like, oh, well, you're not there yet because you're still having a cycle and we've done all these tests and, what we think you are is just depressed and have a generalized anxiety disorder.
Wow.
And I was like, I've never had any of those before. So, but then I'm like, well, maybe because it's COVID. Right? Like it's pandemic. And I know that's been hard on us as a society collectively. Right. So, so I wasn't quite sure what to make of it, but I'll tell you this, it was my mom who said, you know what? I think this is hormonal. I think you should, look into that aspect. And I was
high five to mom.
Well, yeah, I mean, and then I was like, no, mom, I don't think you know what you're talking about. I think I'm actually losing my mind. And so, it was my mom that actually like seeded with me that, well, you are of age to start to begin a transition. And so, yeah.
I totally can relate to both Fabia and Michelle. I all of a sudden had weight issues. I was doing my things and my things didn't work. And I went to my doctor, I talked about it, and he said, you're fine, this is your new normal. And so I was like, no, it's not. And I Googled just different things, and I actually came across the website, and the website had some information about, changes that can happen when you're in this phase of life. And so I was like, okay, oh wow, like that seems feasible because I'm doing the same stuff. Like what's happening? Why is my body betraying me right now?
Betrayal.
Exactly. Like, we were good up until this point, but that was like how I even that was my first advisement of this. Yeah. And even when I talked to my doctor about it, she was like, oh, my general doctor, she was like, oh, that's cool. Like, okay. So I felt like I have more information than you do. Like, this is weird. And like finding the group online, I don't know if you guys are part of the Facebook group, but I was like, this is an oasis. Like, we're not taught this stuff. I don't think a lot of our doctors even know what to do.
No.
And I'm just grateful that I was able to find Winona. Yeah.
Yeah. And speaking about the doctor situation, boy, that's a really misinformed group because I went to an OBGYN, which was a woman who I thought would be sympathetic. And when I told her, I have such fatigue. I'm the most active person I know throughout my life, always running around doing things. And then all of a sudden I could barely just work and then come home and lay down. And if I had a day off, it was like, I just wanted to lay down all day. I couldn't do anything. So I asked the doctor and she goes, menopause is not a disease. There's not a pill that we could give you to fix you. And I was like, wow, thanks. That was really sweet of you.
Super. Yeah. How unhelpful.
Right.
How unhelpful.
Yeah. Anyway, but so I went home and I started to research too. And now when you say a word out loud, you get 1 million ads. So that was helpful. And I think that Instagram gave me Winona, and I went on there and they just had a lot of information, and you just read. There's so much information actually, if you look for it. when you realize you need it.
Right.
The problem is you don't know you need it. So when I did look on there, it was very helpful. And all of the websites that I read about, like different medical studies and about the cancer, connection with menopause, taking hormone treatments, because I was concerned about that, because that was really the only thing I knew was like, don't take hormone treatment because you're going to get cancer.
Oh. Yeah.
Yes.
So I really researched into that heavily and found some great articles that said otherwise, and a lot of more female doctors that were kind of on cutting edge type treatment for women with different, creams, pills, chips, whatever. They had everything. So, but Winona felt the most friendly to me for some reason. I don't know if it's the colors or this. It's just like it was in layman's terms. It wasn't hard to understand. So it was really helpful. And obviously the pricing was really a factor for me, because it's like, well, at that price, I could try it. If it doesn't work, what's the worst,
Yeah. That's great. So I think accessibility is important. And I think I just want to touch on quickly before we move on to something else about how I think it sounds like all of us have experienced sort of this medical gaslighting,
Yes.
which is super frustrating because nobody likes to feel gaslit on any topic, but especially when it comes to your health, because we're all educated people and we live in our bodies.
Sure.
And who knows our body better than us?
Right.
So to have another physician tell you that you don't know what you're talking about, or to sort of poo-poo your experience, it's really disempowering, I think. And not only that, but, in a strange way, it leads us as women to be really resourceful to sort of fend for ourselves, to find out what we need to find out, right? Which, and shamefully so, when you have a female gynecologist who does that. And you think like, well, wait, you of all people should be supporting me. You should be encouraging me to help understand what this means, or it doesn't mean something for me, or what specifically should I do, or here are my concerns, and to feel like you're heard or seen. I'm happy that all of you have found Winona and that you feel seen and heard and part of the community, because I think that in this day and age, by and large, most of us have been, for lack of a better way of putting it, sort of just, on the ground, going to our OBGYNs, to our doctor's offices in person. And then I think when COVID happened, so many of us were already on, what else could we do? We were online and finding the resources that way and really, sort of fending for ourselves, for lack of a better way of putting it. And
Absolutely.
Which is a good thing, this is how I found Winona as well, right? Was during COVID online. So that's a really amazing, I think, benefit. If we could find a silver lining in COVID, at least one, right? Is that we found community for something that was really ailing all of us. And that's a hard thing to really start to feel at home about, is, a big change. And also to feel like you have community support at a time where it's hard to cultivate community, because just even from a geographical standpoint, we're not able to really connect with other people. Right. So what a nice thing at the end of the day to find this group of women, right?
For sure.
So,
and I gotta tell you, I literally thought this was probably the first time I thought the healthcare system failed me. Because I had even been told at one point, like, oh, well, maybe we should just give you like a prescription for like bipolar or something. And I was like, no, like it was just the oddest thing. Like, we're going to try this, we're going to try that. And nowhere, no physician, not one. And I saw several doctors, several OB-GYNs, my general practitioner, psychiatrist, everyone, no one made a connection. Like, okay, here's what's happening. It literally wasn't until I came to California, to be honest with you.
wow.
But everybody else was like, we're going to give you this drug, that drug. And I'm like, well, wait, this is for schizophrenia. Like, what is this? I'm not taking any of this stuff. And it was really, really traumatic.
Wow.
So
I'm
finding
so sorry.
Winona is just, it's been really, really great.
Wow. I'm glad that you did too. And that's terrible. I'm so sorry. I wish I could say that hearing that wasn't the first time I've heard something like that. And I think that that's the shameful part, is that so many of our experiences are dismissed.
Yeah.
But thank you, everybody, for sharing that, because I think it really helps everybody feel so much more grounded in our experience as being real and being valid, right? Is seeing that external validation from our peers and from other women.
And knowing they're not alone.
Yes.
Okay, so I want everybody, if you're willing, if you feel comfortable, sharing any funny or embarrassing stories about your menopause experience. If you've had any specific incidences or just a general comment or aside, if you have something you want to share, please feel free.
I have one.
You do?
How much time do we have?
Okay, let's hear it.
Well, again, it was probably, I think the first time it really clicked. I moved here and taking a shower, and I'm, getting ready to meet a friend for lunch, and I decide to like polish my toenails. I'm like, and sit out, and literally sweat is running from my boobs. Fresh out of the shower, sitting there polishing my toenails, and I just looked down and I was like, first of all, boobs, you're not even large enough. Okay, like, how are you sweating? First of all, like, what is happening? And I'm like, no, this must truly be what a hot flash is, because there's no way I could be this hot out of a shower with like AC running in my home and sitting here, like,
wow,
just polishing toenails. It was the most bizarre, and even I had to laugh at it. I was like, this is hilarious.
That's good. Yeah. Oh, I like it. Boob sweat.
Boob sweat.
Well, that's a good share. Who else has something to share?
Just the feeling of no one else seeming to be hot and uncomfortable aside from yourself. You'd be at a beautiful, fabulous dinner and you're fanning and sweating and everyone else is just chill and enjoying the experience. And you're like, is anyone else hot?
Yeah.
No, we're fine. No, we're fine. As I'm pouring with sweat beads dripping from every orifice of my body. That's pretty embarrassing.
I think that's the mantra. Is it hot in here?
Is it hot in here?
Is anybody else hot? Like, I feel like I've said that more in the last 2 years than I've said in my entire life.
It's such an honest question too. Like, you really want to get to the bottom of what's happening to you, and everyone's chilling, everyone's good, and you're like, again, it's me.
You're like,
it's
so no one. There's no one hot. Nobody's hot.
Me.
It's all me. Good to know. Yeah. Well, I wondered too, like, I think looking for that external validation so that we feel like our experience is real. Like, if I sit here and say, God, I'm hot, and you go, yeah, me too. Yeah, I'm hot. Oh, I'm super hot. Yeah, hey, can you put the AC on?
Yeah.
You feel normal, right? It's like, everybody here is hot. I mean, we're hot, but we're hot. Right? Like, okay, then it's allowed, right?
Sure.
But it's sort of this permission, right? It's an understated like permission slip that you need, right? To feel your feelings or to have your emotional experience with it or your physical experiences. It's like if everybody else is having it, then there's nothing wrong with me.
That validation.
Right. Exactly.
So we kind of like, it's like testing the water. You're like putting your toe in to say like, okay, well, I wonder, because then you're more willing to share. It's like with anything, if you volunteer something personal than everybody else is, then you think like, okay, safe space, right? I can talk about this. But if everybody else is like, yeah, hey, I'm good. You're like, oh, not my people.
Exactly.
Not my people.
They're all in parkas and they're like freezing and you're like, oh, hey, I'm here.
Okay, I'm not sharing with, this is not my crowd. Okay, good. Right? Well, this is the thing though. I think for me, you have like some people in your life that probably also are in menopause. So that's like your crew or the people you can call and be like, this just happened, or I had a day today, this experience happened, or whatever it is that you encounter as a result of menopause that you have a go-to person. So was there anybody that you had while you were experiencing the beginning of menopausal symptoms that you felt like you could connect with, like a person, whether it's family member, sister, friend, coworker, neighbor, anybody?
Just my mom. Like I have older girlfriends and they're living fabulously. And I'm just looking at them like, what's going on? Like, do you have the same thing? And I just don't I don't feel comfortable asking because they're not volunteering it.
Yeah.
And I'm overhearing conversations when we have girls' time. And it's like a lot of them have stopped menstruating. So I'm assuming you guys have gone through the change.
Yeah.
But like they still haven't talked about it. And they look great. They have amazing lives. And so my mom was the first person that I asked, like, so what should I expect, you know? But it's still, I'm still not comfortable approaching them that way because I don't know how they'll react to it.
Yeah. And I think like with a lot of our situations, we're not really sure we're going into it. So it's not like I'm like, oh, I'm going into menopause. I'm going to reach out and talk to people about it. It's more like I'm so anxious. Like I've always been anxious. So for me, it was like, maybe I'm just really stressed out lately. And when I was tired, it's like, maybe I'm just lazy. Maybe I need to get to the gym, but I like couldn't get off the sofa. So it was like, why can't I get up anymore? Like, what is the deal? So I just think that in the beginning, you're so confused. You don't, I didn't even know there was such thing as like, there's like so many stages. I just thought there's menopause. I just thought like you stop, you stop having your period and then you might get hot and then, that's it. You're over. Like your life's over. Yeah. But it's like, no, there's like these little beautiful stages. It's like, really? Where did those stages come from? So when you're in the beginning stage and you have no idea you're in it, you just think that you're having other side effects from something else, whatever it is, stress, relationship problems, work issues, just life in general.
I got into fix my life mode. Like I can totally resonate that. I was like, I'm gonna meditate.
Yes,
I'm gonna go to bed. I'm gonna work out. Like I was like, I have a shadow book journal. I'm like, me too.
Oh my God. These are, mine is getting wetter, right?
I was totally doing the same thing. It was yoga and meditation. And then it was, it was journaling. There were all these things that are, ultimately good for you anyway, but really, it was about me trying to figure out like where I was veering off. And I then started talking to my aunt who dealt with hot flashes terribly and panic attacks. And, and then I talk to my friends, like I tell them and they're all like, whoa, wow. Like we're not going through any of these things. And I'm like, okay. I am. So,
Thanks for coming out and supporting me.
That must have been hard. It must have been forced more of what the doctors were saying, thinking like maybe it was just a mental health issue or something.
Yeah.
Literally.
Because all your friends are like, not us. Like, we're fine.
Like, no, we don't, And to your point, the exhaustion for me was the exhaustion, the insomnia. Those two things together, I was like, I am not going to make it. Like, I don't even understand what's happening here.
I hate that for you. I hate that for all of us, really. I do. I really do. Michelle, did you have any fix it moments where you went into, I'm going to find the remedy for myself by doing these other things? Or
I have an endless supply of green tea. Which did not combat the fatigue that I started experiencing. To everyone else's point, the journaling, the sort of reevaluating everything, waking up with the sun, meditating, trying to do this and that, just weren't. They're good for you. Like, they're awesome things that attribute to wellness. But honestly, I needed Winona to come in and provide what I needed as a solution now. I needed them as a solution right now.
Right.
And so it served me better than, or in conjunction with the journaling, the meditating, it is my new normal. Winona is part of my new normal.
Yeah. Love that.
My wellness routine includes Winona. So.
How did you feel like once you started the process with us? How did it feel, or what was your experience like when you finally got to connect with your OBGYN? What was that like for you?
Positive, someone who understood, willing to accommodate and answer questions, feedback right away. You don't have to wait, 14 days, 2 weeks for an email, a phone call, or a recorded message. You're able to connect with someone right away. So that was very helpful because, as you stated about the concerns with cancer and questions about, do I take hormones? Do I not? what does that look like? Someone who's a medical professional or a physician to answer those questions for me right away is what's very integral and
That's
important.
great.
Yeah, with a lot of compassion
Mhm.
Yes.
and kindness.
Yes.
You know, like
Definitely.
that was so striking to get, because I mean, so much nowadays, you go into a doctor's office, maybe you see a different doctor every time,
Mhm.
depending on what your insurance is, which is mine. I always see different people. And so you don't really have a connection with a doctor. But now with Winona, when I email, I have the same doctor every time. He's amazing. He's so sweet. He always says, I'm sorry you're feeling that way.
Yeah.
So many doctors don't really ever consider your emotions. They just are looking at, how do I fix this problem?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they're robotic in a way. So it just felt really warm. It almost felt like, is that really my doctor? It's really a doctor.
Speaking of robotic, I thought it was a bot. I was like, this person is not a person.
Right?
They would respond to me same day.
Yeah, and they're so nice.
Really? Like a whole human being is actually responding to me? Like, I was blown away.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's wow.
I
Well,
had
that says
trust
a lot,
issues.
though, right? About no, I mean, but think about it. Like when we're gaslit so often in our experience, and then you actually find somebody or someone that actually does respond, and it's so out of the realm of what's been possible or what's been your experience up to now that you think like, oh, this is not even for real, right?
Right.
That's very true.
So, I mean, which sort of breaks my heart, right? That shouldn't be our lived experience as women,
Right.
period. I mean, it's not obviously just even on this topic, but in general, right?
Yeah.
But specific to this experience, I think it really is heartbreaking. And at the same time, I'm really happy that everybody here has had a positive experience in that way with Winona, right?
Yes.
Right.
It's so refreshing. I've even gotten a call from Winona. I was in a grocery store and they're like, hi, Fabia, you have a message in your portal? And I was like,
Okay.
yeah, I saw it. I was going to look at it. I just have been busy. And they like called a couple times and I was like, okay, like, no, they're actually on it. Like, no, your doctor's gotten back to you and said why. And I'm like, okay. So
Good. And yeah, I think it feels really nice to know that people are paying attention to you,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, especially with something so important. And, especially, I don't think that the journey for anybody is linear. It's not like,
Exactly.
oh, well, you're now in phase 3,
Yeah.
like
I'm
there's
telling
no,
you.
Right.
it's just happening in real time. And you might need to check in with somebody. And thank goodness that there are people with us that are, we have many OBGYNs. I don't know who everybody here sees or how that's been for you over a period of time. But if you feel like you've had consistency with your care, I think that that's something that we can really take away as a positive thing.
Right.
Right.
yes.
Absolutely.
Is there something about your experience that I mean, aside from the attentiveness, that feels different than whoever you saw before coming to Winona? Like
Anything else? Just I would say the friendly demeanor and the response time. I mean, I've never been so excited to hear from a doctor. I'm like, oh my God, he's going to answer my question. Thank you so much. And then I'm like, I'm just like, thank you so much. I always send him like, folded hands. I'm like, you're the best. So I just think that is just the best part of it, having that ability to reach out so quickly to someone.
I would add that the consideration for other medications that I'm on, like that, I had an in-depth conversation about that. When the nurse asks you, she's just checking off a list. And when they asked follow-up questions. And I was like, why are you in my business? You want me to do what? You know what I mean? Like they were like even suggesting, well, maybe you should go get your blood pressure checked in case of this and that. And I was like, I don't need to do that. And they were like, you should do different things. So I felt like they actually cared about the outcome. And we hear about so many people that, that are affected by the wrong interactions of drugs, and they can even cause a fatal situation too. So I was very appreciative after I got my mind around it. Someone cares.
Right.
That's really nice. I'm glad to hear that, though. I think it's a really good takeaway because it's just not a common experience. And I think that mostly we all want to feel supported. And I don't know for any of you, if you have words of, I don't want to say like encouragement because that doesn't seem right, but anything that you would offer someone who's starting menopause that like, because of your experience, like if you had to tell somebody like, hey, this is what's going to happen. Here's what you should know that I didn't know that you feel like would be really helpful. Is there anything that comes to mind that you would offer as sort of some wisdom?
First, I would say this is menopause right here. Like all these beautiful, youthful, vibrant women, like this is a special phase, like you said, and a thing to be celebrated. You know, we're ascending to another space. And I feel like this is a place that you should aspire to be too.
I love that. I agree, definitely. I love that. We are the faces of menopause. I love that.
Yeah. Definitely comes in all shapes and sizes.
Yes.
All different. I mean, some people have hot flashes all the time. I only had them for 2 weeks. You know, some people have anxiety. Some people have fatigue. But whatever it is, we're all dealing with it in our own way. And being there to support each other, I think is so important, because when you feel like you're alone, everything seems worse.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
And there's a solution. There's help.
Yeah.
There's support. There's a community out there, you know, to help someone who may be nearing that phase or, you know, just starting the phase. There's support. There's help. There's more to anti-aging than just creams and looking youthful.
Serums.
You know, you're concerned with your wellness. Exactly. And how you're going to feel in the next phase. And it can be beautiful once you get those solutions in place. So just be hopeful and know that there are solutions. That's what I would share.
Okay.
Yeah. And that you're not abnormal.
Exactly.
Right.
You're not alone.
Yeah.
Like, I think that that's key. Like,
The alone.
you haven't lost who you are.
It's great.
It's so easy to feel like you're no longer who you were, and that you actually are.
Thank you for saying, I mean, it's validating for me too, because, you know, I think everybody has such a unique experience and we look to each other again for that like marker of like, is it okay for me to have this experience, whatever it is? And because it's so different, like every person here has had a similar yet totally unique experience. And if we're looking to one another to validate, like, did you have that? No, you didn't. Okay, well then it's not real for me. Like, did you have that? Yes, no. Okay, it's not real for me. But it's real for everybody, right?
Yes.
So this is the benefit too of being and having a resource like Winona is not only just, yes, it's amazing to have access to physicians who are available to you, who can answer your questions, and they have medical wisdom that we want and we need, but also to cultivate community. I mean, that's a really important part of not doing the thing that we do as women, which is we just try to figure it out by ourselves, right? Like, well, if I can't get validated from this, or this, then I'll just go internal. I just block out all the other things and I'll just figure it out for myself.
I do that.
Right. So, which is ultimately unhelpful because we suffer when we close out everybody. Right. So I think that this is the benefit, right, of what we're getting from using Winona is I mean, community and support, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes.
I think that that's really beneficial. I'm so glad everybody feels like that.
Yeah, when you go internal, you just end up fueling whatever you're telling yourself, you fuel it even more.
Yeah, it's really intense.
Well, I think the other thing too that's interesting to me is about sort of as women and being nurturers and being caretakers, you know, that we sort of are on a level the last people to sort of ultimately take the proper care of ourselves because, you know, we kind of almost gaslight ourselves, right? When you think about, well, that's not really real. That's not something I'm having happen. This isn't really a real thing. You know, we talk ourselves out of our experience because other people aren't having it or we perceive that, right? That's not something that we're noticing in our peer groups or, you know, in our families, or if we didn't have that example shown to us, then we think like, no. It's not okay.
Right.
And it's like you don't want to believe it in a way because it makes you feel like you're not as strong. You're not as like superior as a woman.
Right.
Like, because you're always the stronghold. You're the one keeping people together, or, you know, keeping the house clean, keeping your kids together and strong. And so you don't want people to perceive you as being a weak person.
Sure.
Maybe in your family or in society. And so by saying, oh, I'm hot, you don't want to complain about everything. Like, oh, I don't feel good, I'm tired. You just get up and you make it happen every day. And it wears you down.
Yeah.
If you don't acknowledge it and you don't reach out and try to get someone help in some way.
Sure.
And that's a huge point, because I've always been kind of like the strong one, right? And I actually had a family member said, of all the people, I would have never imagined that you would be having this much trouble. And I was just like, yeah, well, strong people need support too.
Right.
And need the space to know that it's okay to not be okay.
Sure.
Right? Like, and so that found it very interesting coming from a couple family members, because it did make me feel weak or less than, or like an imposter, right? Because yes, I was this person that's buttoned up and I have it all together, and I'm the person you come to with issues, and I'm the objective one, and you know, I'm all these things, and all of a sudden I was none of those things.
Yeah.
And
that makes me think of a meme that says, check on your strong friends.
Yes.
And I feel like that's so true. Like I'm that person in my family too. And it's like, you don't really know what strong people go through.
Yes.
And even when we break, it's like, you're not supposed to break. Like that's not supposed to be you. And I felt like there's no room for this new change, my feelings on top of what I already deal with. You know, it felt very like isolating.
Yeah.
You know, because I had no one around me that could relate to it. So yeah, I did have a hard time.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I want to talk about, so we all know what traditional menopause symptoms look like, or what we've heard about, you know, your standard hot flashes, insomnia, you know, et cetera, weight gain. But let's talk about the symptoms that nobody talks about, the things that you think aren't a symptom, or maybe you haven't had that experience. I don't know. So if anybody here has had something that would fall outside the scope of your traditional, you know, stereotypical menopausal symptom, I want to hear. Let me know.
Yes. I experience like extremely itchy skin. Like it's very weird. It's, you know, and it doesn't feel like dry and itchy. It feels like I've been bitten by a mosquito and I'm itchy. And it's like scratching to the point of like, okay, now this is a little swollen. And so it's, you know, I've never had that before, but then I read somewhere that, oh no, you can have itchy skin and you can also develop like eczema or psoriasis in parts of the body. I mean, it's just so, it's so odd, isn't it? I'm like, and like, I'm just going to put it all under the menopause umbrella. Hair's falling out, ears tingling, ringing, all of it's menopause.
Yep.
All of it.
I get that. Yeah.
I actually didn't even realize that was a symptom, because when you just mentioned it, it was like a light bulb, because I was having every night, I would start getting so itchy. I thought I had bed bugs or something. I'm like, but then in the day, I'm perfectly fine. I have no bites. There's no discoloration. It was just severe itchiness. I'm like, wow, I'm losing it, you know? And then the other thing about the hair loss was concerning to me, because my hairdresser said, your hair is a little bit thinner. I'm like, oh my God. Because, you know, everyone has always said, your hair is so thick. And then she said it was getting thin. I go, am I going to lose all my hair? Like, what am I going to do? Like, and she's like, no, you have plenty. Like, you can lose more. Like, it's fine. But it was scary, you know? Like, and I know some women, it's even more of a concern. And it even is a visible change, which I'm sure must be really hard.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are really weird symptoms. Really strange.
It is. Michelle, have you had any?
Some incontinence, a little embarrassing, but, you know, long car rides. It used to be the kids were the ones that you had to stop for, but now mom's got to stop too. You know, I just can't.
Yeah.
My bladder or whatever the issue is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Big change.
I agree. I enjoy the bathroom breaks. We take several. We went to Disney, and I think we went every bathroom we went by. We
Yep.
I know this is a common one, but like adult acne. Like I've never had acne in my life, so like this is having to be the acne girl is like very humbling.
Yeah.
You know, and not knowing how to fix it. Like now I can relate to my friends who had acne issues. Like it just happens when it wants to. It goes away when it wants to. And I just feel like a victim.
I know. And well, I think especially because the things that, there are things that we can't see, right, that are internal. So like no one's knowing, I mean, unless you're visibly sweating, that you're having a hot flash, you can be feeling on fire inside, but maybe you aren't sweating, like, right? So some people don't know that or whatever, brain fog, right?
Yeah.
Nobody's seeing that internal process, but it's not less real, right? And so that goes for anything too. But when you have a breakout on your face, obviously that's something that is, I think like you were saying, it's very humbling in that what happens to you internally, it's sort of like, well, good. No one's seeing that.
Right.
No one needs to know. Again, with this, sort of undercurrent of shame about our symptoms, right? Like, thank God no one can see that I don't remember this person's name, or I can't, what did that person just say to me? Or, so however it shows up for you is, I think though, even when we sort of outwardly accept it and we say that we accept these things as part of this process of menopause where symptoms come that, are common, there's still, I think, inherently shame about that because we're still like, oh, good. Like, I'm so glad that person doesn't know that about me, whatever that is. Like, we don't want to say like, oh yeah, I sneezed and I peed a little, like that was embarrassing, but that also happened. Okay, gross. But like it's happening and it's real and it's actually okay. But the idea is that we are made to think that it's not because it's not an attractive quality or it's something that, we should just, especially depending on maybe how we were all raised, like there are certain things that we should care extra about or that we should have pride about or that they're just things that happen that we just don't talk about. Right. So some of those things might fall under that umbrella.
Yeah.
Especially with the lesser known symptoms. I mean, I think there's some other interesting ones like dry mouth is one. I don't know if anybody's had that where you're like, kind of get the cotton mouth.
I've had it before.
I have
early
too,
on.
Right. And you think like, wait, what?
I think
What's
maybe
happening?
I had joint pain. Like once again, you just don't know. You're like, is this from this or is it from something else? But it seems to make sense that it would be from that. Like severe joint pain sometimes where you feel like you can't even sleep because you're in pain.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it comes and goes it comes as fast as it goes almost.
I think so. The other thing is too, recently, and I didn't know this, which was about when you have a hormonal dip that you become more clumsy, that you drop things or break things. And I was like, it makes so much sense because always prior to a period, I would start dropping things, breaking, and I'm not a forgetful person and, or somebody that's clumsy. And I had never known that. And then once I mentioned it to somebody else who was also in menopause, they were like, oh, I break stuff all the time, or I run into stuff all the time, or I have bruises from running into the table or stubbing my toe, or do you know what I mean?
I'm literally having a moment right now. Like, I knock over things and I run into stuff.
I walked right into a patio door and I've never done anything like that before. Right into it. I was like, this is crazy. What is this?
I mean, but this, I think the interesting part about the interesting component about this is when you think, is this just real life, right? This is just me running into stuff or dropping stuff versus is this a menopausal symptom? And I think that that's one of the hard things to discern.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Is this real or is this menopause? And I didn't know, I mean, it was a little scared that, at Winona, we have an ebook that's 100+ symptoms of menopause.
Okay.
100. Okay.
Wow.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Right? So then at one point you're like,
That is a
technically
lot.
everything I do throughout my day is a menopausal thing, right? So asking the OBGYNs at Winona, about that.
Okay.
Like, okay, hey, I experience A, B, C, D, E. Is this just me? Or is this something that is really a part of this journey? Is this something that's part of menopause? Because, there are things that are just everyday life, right? That happen as you age as a person, and it maybe isn't a menopausal thing, but it's hard to make the distinction, right? Because so many things, there's sort of like a blurry line between what is and what isn't sometimes. And so I think for me, at least, it's been really helpful to have go-to people to say like, is this real? Is this part of this? Because if it is, it's helpful. I feel relief when I find out like, oh, it's just menopause.
Yes.
Good.
And
Right?
I have another issue which a lot of women suffer from, which is migraines. I've had them for about 23 years. And I was told, oh, don't worry. Once you hit menopause, they're going to all go away. That's because your hormone changed. And I was like, awesome. I have something to look forward to, right? Nope. So I'm here to tell you that is not always the truth. I still have migraines. They're all over the place. So maybe the hormone change is doing something to them. But, and I think that people need to know that it's not necessarily, and I've also been told that some women have it their entire lives until they're in their like 80s.
Really?
Yeah. So,
Oh, wow.
so it could be hormonal, but it could be many other factors. And
Yeah.
people just need to understand that it's not the cure all. For that.
So what's interesting is, again, when I started experiencing and I think, like I said, my most troublesome symptom at first was just anxiety. So once I started doing all this research, and then even once I started doing research into menopause and menopause systems and or symptoms, and understanding that, your hormones are spiking, but then you also have cortisol that's spiking, and cortisol affects everything.
Yeah.
So, you have nerves running through your entire body. And so I think that's why when you say 100 plus symptoms, I'm not surprised, because it literally is things from migraines to tinnitus. Like, people complain about that, and your skin flips out, and you have eczema, and you have all you have all this stuff, and it's all like, just interrelated to what's going on in your body. So I think that's the only thing that's been able, because I love science. And so that's been the only kind of like saving grace for me, is that it's like, this is literally all tied together. It's not in my mind.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's really real. I think the interesting thing too is that, there are a lot of things that help menopause that I think the information hasn't been as readily available to us as I would have liked, right? Which is to say, here are some things that you can do to empower yourself, to feel like you have the tools to help yourself, right? Certainly Winona has a lot, we have physicians you can contact, we have community, but we also have, I think our biggest job is educating people so they understand. Because when you have information, you really have power and autonomy over your body, right? And this is something that I think is, in my opinion, worth its weight in gold. Because like, how else, if you don't know, if you're missing information, then, this is when the mind really kicks in, right?
Exactly.
And then you do feel crazy because
you feel it in yourself.
this is exactly what happens. It's human nature, right?
Yes.
And when we pay the mind, the mind is its own, it can be your own worst enemy, right?
Absolutely.
So if we let ourselves fill in the blank with the things that we don't know, with our fears, then we really do create a monster.
Yeah.
So it is helpful to have information available to you. And I think that at least once you have kind of a general blueprint of what something looks like for you, then you can start making better choices for yourself. And then you can start saying like, okay, hey, this is what works for me. And even within all of us at Winona, and like what we're taking or what our experience is, it's specific to each of us, right? And the thing that I like about Winona, so much is that it's not a one size fits all.
Right.
Like, here's your treatment plan.
Right.
You get A, B, C, D, E, and it's like this package thing, and you get it, and you get it, and you get it, and you get it. And we all go like, oh, well, I'm taking the blah, blah from Winona. No. It's, you get what's unique to you, your medical history, your experience, your physical symptoms, your emotional symptoms, so that we're not here to just check off boxes and prescribe things to people at random, right? Because why, it's just not a one size fits all. You don't just show up and get your menopause treatment, Are you here for your menopause treatment?
Yeah.
Great. Come on in.
You get a menopause treatment. You get a menopause.
This is not Oprah giving away cars. This is a real thing that requires somebody's attentiveness to you and your body.
Yeah.
And it should be specific and unique to you. And, I'm sure that there are other women out there that could probably say that hasn't been their experience. But I think that it's something to take really, really seriously about, what does it look like to have somebody really attend to, see you, care about you? Like, if you have a medical history, if you have a mother that's had breast cancer, if you have a sibling, if you yourself are, being diagnosed with something and you want to know, like, hey, I'm on this treatment plan and can I take this? What are the contraindications for me?
Yeah.
Like, this information is important. It can really harm or help depending on, what your experience is. And it takes a person that is hopefully in medicine for the right reason, which is essentially to help people and to help women who are in menopause. And this is an important thing. And I think that at Winona, one of the things that I really appreciate is that is at the forefront of what they're doing, which is to say, this is something unique to you. We aren't here to give you a package deal.
Yes.
and to all your friends as well, right? I mean, yes, tell your friends if it's a good thing. Yes, we want that. But most importantly is what it means to you specifically in your makeup and what you're experiencing. And it sounds like everybody here has had a positive experience in that regard.
Yeah, and they just actually changed my treatment plan for me. Because I've been on it, I guess, for about 7 months now. So I was getting ready to get my new, one sent to me. And I was having some issues. I was having periods like every 2 weeks. And I'm like, is this normal? Because, nothing is normal anymore. But I'm like, is this okay? And he's like, no, that's absolutely not normal. So I'm going to change your dosage. And so that was instantaneous. And it just happened. They had just asked me like, hey, we're ready to send you your new dosage, any issues? And I said that, he fixed it, and then they sent it out. So it was that could never happen in the real world.
Yeah.
It was so helpful. And within just days, I was trying, onto the new dosage, and so far, so good. I mean, it's been soon, so I don't know, but we'll keep the doctor posted.
I'm so glad to hear that. That's really reassuring.
Customization.
Yeah.
Customization is top notch.
Yeah, very custom.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
That's good. I'm really glad to hear that. And you too, Michelle?
Definitely. Knowing that you have something curated specifically to your experience is important.
Yeah.
It makes me feel good.
Yes.
So everybody here started their treatment at Winona. And then I'm sure everybody had expectations about how fast is this going to work, right? How soon am I going to see something show up for me that's going to alleviate my symptoms? So I guess what would be helpful to know from each of you would be, what was it like when you started taking your specific prescription? And then how long did it take for you to start seeing or noticing results? And or maybe you didn't. And if you didn't, what was that like for you? Good or bad? How long? Anybody who wants to talk about what that might look like for you?
Initially, I experienced some spotting. I did. I don't know if anyone else had the same, but I did have some light spotting. But it went away pretty quickly. And then in terms of results, positive results, pretty quickly for me. I experienced less bloating, just an overall feeling of just feeling better. able to reduce those hot sweats, those night sweats, and, some of the exhaustion was curtailed within about a month, I'd say, of taking them. My first month, I noticed positive experiences, but it did take about a good 30 days for my symptoms to start to dissipate and for me to start. Just knowing that I had something that was going to be part of my regimen and my solution, I was feeling good about it. So I was pretty patient. But I did have the initial spotting and a few other issues. But other than that, it's been all uphill and awesome.
Yeah.
Good.
I actually was told to take my product, the cream, at night because they said it would help me sleep. And so for the first couple of days, I was just spinning at night. Like I couldn't go to sleep. I felt like I was on something else. I was just staring at the ceiling. And so I had to message my doctor. Like he was like my best friend the first couple of weeks. I literally emailed him every day, twice a day. He probably knows me by name.
He's like,
It's Julie. Yeah. She's like, all right, here we go. Neurotic one, whatever. So then he said, switch to the morning. When I did, it was like a life-changing experience because I almost had immediate results with the fatigue. Like I immediately felt better. I felt more, energetic, almost happier in a sense. I don't know if it was just because my mood was better or whatever. I also did feel or experience spotting in the beginning, which he said was normal, and it did go away. But yeah, I would say that I felt like my results were almost immediate with the cream.
Yeah.
After I figured out not to take it at night.
Well, it's good too that you were able to ask those questions and have them quickly answered because, again, it's not one size fits all. Like if you take it in the morning and it works for you and you take it at night or vice versa, again, it's not just like everybody takes it in the morning.
Yeah.
Or
Right.
everybody takes it in the evening or some people have to adjust and maybe you end up switching it partway through your treatment. Who knows like how your body's going to respond once you're on something. So
Exactly.
this is good to know. What about you?
For me, I really just kind of surpassed the first 90 days. And I would say it was pretty immediate for me, like in terms of just restful sleep and the hot flashes. I would say that probably occurred within 2 weeks, to be honest with you. Like it was 2 weeks and it was completely different. And then energy levels returning, I would say probably within that first month, I was like, okay, I actually feel more energetic. Like I feel good.
Yeah.
And so bloating, I'm still kind of bloated, honestly. There are days where it's like more bloated than others.
Yeah.
I haven't lost weight yet, but I am feeling good because I have more energy now to work out. And to be honest with you, I had no energy to work out. So now that I'm feeling more energetic, like I actually went to the gym this week. I've kind of reinstated yoga every morning. So I've been doing yoga every morning for a couple months or so now, not a little bit longer. But I'm starting to get back to like, okay, I hike every Saturday now. So, exception to this Saturday, but I hike every Saturday typically. And so definitely having energy levels. And the other thing is I was doing a lot of stress eating too, which I can honestly say that got curbed quite a bit.
That's
so
good.
Now I don't have like some huge appetite or anything like that either.
Yeah. Great.
That's cool.
I knew that.
Okay. Yeah, my issues were weight gain and fatigue, not wanting to get up and work out and that sort of thing. And like I said before, like my regimen when I gained a little weight wasn't working. And so, with my prescription, I felt, really good overall, just a general overall wellness and, just inspired to lose the 20 pounds that I gained. The weight came off. I didn't have to kill myself. I had a sense of well-being that I didn't have before. So that was enough for me. Yeah, but I need that curtailing the appetite. So I need to talk to somebody about that.
That's the hardest one.
You better email your doctor.
Yeah, I'm gonna talk to my doctor.
I think that's one that everybody wants. Everybody's like, well, weight gain. When does it get better? And I think it's so hard. It's a really hard one.
Yeah.
Because anything external, again, right? Anything that people are seeing and you think like, oh gosh, well, I look different or I feel different, and people know, like, oh, they're going to be like, what happened?
Yeah.
Like, are they judging me? Yeah. And that's, again, the shame we start to feel about it. But I'm glad that everybody has had, mostly it seems like everybody had pretty quick results.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah.
Pretty quick.
Getting down to the science of it. So the reason that we overeat is when your body feels naturally exhausted, you actually crave food more. So you have serotonin in your stomach.
Okay.
And so it helps those feel-good hormones. Like, so that's what happens is that
it feels good.
the more exhausted you are, it feels good to eat something, right? And it feels comforting.
It feels good to eat
A
chips.
mood
It
lifter
lifts
and
your
things
mood.
like that. And so it all kind of all ties in together. And
It's all normal.
So interesting.
Yeah.
So,
Well, there's everything is just connected, right? So
Yeah.
your mind and your body, I mean, the physical,
Absolutely.
the emotional, the mental, it's like we can't compartmentalize our experience and isolate it into just the physical symptoms or just the emotional.
Exactly.
It's sadly all married together, whether we want it to or not. There's no divorce happening.
Right.
And,
Absolutely.
And I think that's really hard not to compare yourself to other women your age. Because I'm like, gosh, she's really thin. How's she so skinny? Like, I feel like this whole middle section just has a mind of its own. And I'm like, what happened? I was always like, like now I'm like, do I have to get a one piece? That's so weird.
See, I have a different mantra, Julie. See, mine is now you're just going to get what I give you.
Right. Well, I'm going to get on that train.
You literally are getting what I give you.
Okay.
Like, that's it. This is what I have to give you right now, and this is what you're getting. So,
That's a good
I
mindset.
know. I was thinking the other day about just sort of, our physical bodies and how hard we are on what that looks like for all of us. Because everything is changing, right?
Yes.
If the one thing that we know is that everything is impermanent, everything is always changing. Our bodies, how we think, what we feel, what we eat today, what we eat tomorrow. And so is there a way for us to embrace sort of who we are in any given moment today with your unwanted, however you feel about bloating or not bloating or what you did or didn't do. And to just know that like throughout everything, our body is the one thing that is always with us. Like it is not abandoning us, our body. No matter how much we don't like what it's looking like or feeling like, that it's always there for us, our bodies are. And so to me, I always just sort of try to think about how can I sort of bring as much grace and as much appreciation and self-love to that, to that aspect of it is knowing that, like I might check out on my body. I might want to divorce that. But, I'm really trying to shift that into something that feels a little different, and which is, thinking about it from a slightly different perspective of saying, like, gosh, I really appreciate this body. It is supporting me through this crazy ride. And nobody else is doing it, but my body is doing it with me, right? So that's kind of where I'm trying to come from that place. And when I do, I feel like I can sort of, the edges soften around the experience a little bit.
That's good.
Right?
Yeah.
Because you can bring a little bit of mindfulness to the way that you think about your body and what's happening in it. And if you can sort of mitigate some of that without the self-judgment and without the, sort of negative self-talk and really start to kind of appreciate that. I think that there's really some medicine in that.
Yeah.
So true.
Yeah.
That's exactly where I had to get to.
You're
That's
welcome.
where I had to get to.
And be really nice to your children. Because when you go through this change, they're the ones that make you feel so beautiful still. Like, I only have a son. I don't have any daughters, but he'd be like, Mom, you just need to embrace the coolness that you are. And like, don't wear that other stuff that's trying to show something else, just be you and and just be beautiful. It's so
Aw.
sweet, you know, like
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. So be nice to your children because you're gonna need it later.
I think it's great. And I thank you everybody for sharing all of your stories and experiences and just all the parts of your journey and being part of this community and feeling supported. And I'm just glad that everybody has found sort of a home at Winona and that everyone feels like they have some place to land and that they feel seen and heard and appreciated. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Winona.
It's been a great experience.
Awesome.